Meg's Little Lost Box of Recipes. I'm Meg, and today I'm going to be making an old-fashioned sugar cookie. This recipe was given to me by a friend of my family, and it's been in our family for generations. This recipe comes from my grandmother's best friend, who's actually passed away now. Her name was Dorothy. So growing up, we always looked forward to Dorothy's sugar cookies. What you're gonna need today for this recipe is really simple. It's a cup of most things and a teaspoon of others. So we have a cup of butter, a cup of oil, a cup of powdered sugar, a cup of granulated sugar, and that's what we start with. We start creaming those. Then we're gonna add in the dry goods. So we'll add in 4 1/4 cups of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of cream of tartar, and finally a teaspoon of vanilla. You're also going to need, for this recipe, a mixer or a mixing bowl and a hand mixer, and a bag of, I would say, about a 1/4 cup of pecans. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add in our butter. So we're gonna go ahead and start creaming the butter. And then we're gonna pour in a cup of granulated sugar. We're gonna do the granulated sugar first because it creams better than using the powdered sugar. Sandy consistency. Okay, now we've got this to a granular consistency. It looks a little bit like sand, or you know, that I don't know, moon sand of the 90s that used to play with, or that I used to play with anyway. So we want to scoop it off of our mixer, and I want to show you what it will look like. It's going to be kind of a nice sandy look to it. Okay, so I've added in about half of the oil and half of the the powdered sugar. And so we're gonna start by creaming that together. And it's gonna become really soupy because of the oil that you're putting in. But that's good, because you're gonna need it when you add the 4 1/2 cups of flour, or 4 1/4 cups of flour. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep adding in. Let's add in the other half. Oops, I lost a little bit of oil there. I'm gonna add in the other half of the oil and the other half of the powdered sugar. I'm gonna put it in here and hope we don't get a cloud of powdered sugar. So this, you may notice, is a very oil and butter heavy recipe, and it is because it's going to be a really crispy cookie. We're not making a soft chewy cookie, sugar cookie that you would like frost. Instead, it's going to be a really thin, old-fashioned, crunchy sugar cookie, and we're going to put some pecans and sugar on top. It's going to be delicious. Okay, so now we have a really nice mix going. Let's go ahead and scrape down our thing. We'll have more time to make sure that little bit of butter that just stuck up there gets mixed in, because what we're gonna do now is add in a little bit of the flour. We wanna add in a little bit of flour at a time. We don't wanna add in too much, so I'd say maybe a cup, maybe a cup and a half at a time. You can see we have this really thick cookie dough. And I'm going to show it to you here. Sort of a really thick sort of cookie dough, which is fine because we're going to use a couple of spoons and put them into ovals in just a minute. So next we want to add the salt, the soda, baking soda, the cream of tartar, and the vanilla into the mixture. And we're just gonna finish mixing this up. So now, don't let any of this good cookie dough get knocked out when we're pulling it out. Oh, there we go. So we're gonna try to knock all the cookie dough off of our mixer paddle. Okay, you're gonna wanna turn your oven on to 350 degrees. These will cook for 15 minutes at 350. But first what we're gonna do before we put them in the oven is we're going to get ourselves a little bit of sugar to dust the tops of the cookies with before they go into the oven. We're gonna dust them with sugar before they go into the oven and after they go in, or after they come out. So what we're gonna do now is take our 1/4 cup of pecans, and which I've put in a baggie because I think that's one of the easiest ways to do it. And you're just gonna take them and you're gonna smash. Okay, so what you're gonna do is now you have this little baggie of crushed pecans. You can also buy crushed pecans. That's a thing to do. You don't have to necessarily crush them yourself, but you can choose which one you want to do. So what you're going to do is take your baking pan, your cookie sheet, and you're going to spray it with non-stick. I like to use non-stick baking spray on mine just to make sure, because these are really oily and we want them to be nice and crisp. That's how I like to use it. So I was told that the way that Dorothy did this was to take 2 spoons together, and somehow she magically smushed them and they ended up in this beautiful round way. What I like to do is, I think it's easier just to use my hands. So I make them into, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 sized ball, and then put it down on the cookie sheet and smush it a little bit. You want this to be pretty thin. You don't want to necessarily see the pan through the cookie, but you want it to be pretty skinny. So you can see I started with maybe a 1/4 size, and now we're around 2 inches. These are not going to expand too much while they're in the oven, unlike some cookies. So you can feel free to put them as close as you want. Leave a little bit of room between them, but you don't have to worry about leaving an inch or so. Great. So now I've finished putting all of my cookies on my cookie sheet and smashing them down. So we're gonna decorate them before they go into the oven. I like to put pecans on first, and I put just a little sprinkle of them on each cookie. You want to take a little bit of sugar and just sort of sprinkle it on top. Like I said, we're going to put more sugar on when they come out of the oven, because I think sugar cookies should have sugar on top of them, as befits the name. Okay, and then what we're going to do, just to make sure we really get it in there, is sort of smush down, just really gently, just to get it in the very top layer, the walnut, or the pecans. Okay, so now we're going to put these in the oven. So after about 5 minutes, your cookies are going to be cooled enough and ready for you to eat. I like to have mine with a little bit of coffee or a little bit of tea. Tonight I'm going to have some coffee. And I think these are just about right. We can see if they'll, oh yeah, look at that, nice and crispy, really good. Let's have a bite like this. They just melt in your mouth. I'm telling you, once you try these cookies, you will never go back to the traditional flat, fluffy cookies with icing on top. This is the best. So good.